What's going on, ProGuides family? My name is Dan, and I'm here with an update for patch 10.14. As promised, we're going to be updating all of our tier lists to help you guys out in your ranked climbs. We're following up on all the changes as well, letting you know just how much these buffs and nerfs have really affected the champions touched last week. Before we get started with the video, can you do me a favor and answer our question of the day? What champion do you think is the face of League of Legends? In other words, which champion do you think first comes to people's minds when they hear or think of League of Legends? Also, why? And I'm going to be reading this one, so answer wisely. This is a tough one to admit to, but I feel like it's probably Ahri. She's one of the most popular champions for reasons, and gained a ton of exposure to the public eye years back when Riot introduced the Popstars skin line. A close second for me might be Annie or Ryze, and I'm trying to be objective here, because all the way back when League was released, you could actually find them on the League of Legends starter pack boxes at various stores. But let me know your answers in the comments below. With all that said, let's hop into the video. First up, let's run through the top lane. Starting things off, let's follow up on one of the most anticipated balance changes this patch, which was to Riven. Riven received a minor buff to her passive, but this is all it took. Seriously, just 5% more damage from her passive has gone a long way for her. Overall, her win rate has increased by a whole %. This is at basically all ranks, and of course, this includes high elo as well. Because of Riven's incredibly high skill ceiling and skill floor, our analysts have decided to keep Riven in the A tier. She's objectively pretty high in the A tier, and based on who's playing them, can be an S or S plus tier pick. We just don't want to overhype the player base, cause people to first time Riven in a ranked game, run it down, and wonder what in the world happened. She takes a lot of practice, but with enough of it, you can absolutely hard carry your games with her. Next, our analysts heavily, and I mean heavily, underestimated the Wukong nerfs. His damage wasn't touched, but he lost a little bit of crowd control on his R. In spite of this, Wukong's win rates have dropped a lot. I'm shocked because his win rate dropped a whole 1.5% off of this one minor change. For the first time since his rework, Wukong's jungle win rate has actually dropped below 50%, while his top lane's win rate is only slightly above 50% now. What this comes down to is that League of Legends isn't always just about raw power. Combat stats alone don't win you this game. Utility and other accessory traits mean just as much, if not more. Our analysts have moved Wukong all the way down to the A tier. This is because he also has a lot of presence in the jungle as well. Wukong's power as a flex pick merited his worth as an S plus tier pick, but he's lost a lot of that commanding spirit this patch. To follow up on our point, Volibear is the guy that received a raw combat stat nerf. His win rate dropped 0.5% as a top laner, but we'll talk a little bit more about him in the jungle shortly. Volibear remains a pretty solid jungle champion, and we still think there's room for players to practice and improve while playing Volibear. We're keeping Volibear in the S tier for now because potential, no memes here. While he might not seem like the most skill-intensive champion, it's only been about a month and a half since his rework. I confidently believe players still have room to grow and are discovering new things about him every day. Alright, with that covered, let's run you guys through our other changes. First up, Mordekaiser has been moved down to the B tier. The meta has been slowly shifting away from Juggernauts toward more bruiser carries. Of the Juggernauts, it feels like Mordekaiser is on the weaker end, outshined heavily by Darius and Garen. While he's not bad, there are better options. If you want a Juggernaut, choose one of the others. If you want a champion with more agency, you're better off playing divers like Camille, Riven, or even Hecarim. Speaking of Camille though, she's been moved to the S tier. Her win rates and high elo have been popping off, and her overall win rate is pretty decent as well, sitting around the 50% mark. Her win rates go as high as 54% in high elo, meaning that the best players know she's pretty cracked right now. Thus, our S plus tier consists of Darius, Fiora, and Garen, while our S tier consists of Volibear, Kled, Jax, Urgot, Nasus, Singed, Maokai, and Camille. Next, let's run through the jungle. Okay, first, let's talk about Volibear just like I promised. His win rate dropped 2%, but it wasn't because of the attack speed he lost. Instead, it's because his sustain took a giant hit, as his W healing from jungle monsters was cut in half this patch. He's a bit riskier to pick now, but that's what we love, balance. Next is Trundle. He's one of the losers of this patch. He took a fat L. Of all you guys watching this, I know there are definitely tank players smiling and getting ready to spam some more ranked games soon. This is your patch to shine for sure. Trundle's win rate has dropped, but more importantly, his pick rate has plummeted quite a bit. Our analysts predict that by the end of the patch, his games played compared to last patch will be about 35 to 40% lower. Less Trundle means more of you guys actually get to play the game. Tank meta intensifies, Realistically speaking, however, I do think that tanks will still have a little bit of trouble in solo queue. In competitive play, our analysts do expect tanks to become much more popular. Sejuani, like our analysts predicted, is feeling much stronger than before after her buffs this patch. While her win rates fall short of 50%, we do think the amount of utility she brings to the table merits her as an A-tier pick for now. You're sacrificing some combat power for picking her, but with the right team composition, she's easily one of the best champions in the game. Now, Kha'Zix though. Yeah, we don't want to talk about it, but we have to. He's really, really OP. We left him in the A tier at the beginning of the patch, but he kind of won this patch. We were talking about how raw combat power isn't everything, and it really isn't. However, Kha'Zix got raw bonus damage, which not only helped him out in duels, but it also increased his clear speed. All junglers know how important clear speed is. It gives you more idle time to pressure the map, pressure neutral objectives, or just recall to get back on the map faster. Like our analyst briefly pointed out at the beginning of the patch, his buff to his Q also made him stronger at clearing Dragon, Rift Herald, and Baron. All of us know how important these objectives are, so we shouldn't be surprised that Kha'Zix's overall win rate jumped by 3% this patch. I try not to give my own balance change suggestions too often, but I think they need to find a way to nerf Kha'Zix after this buff. Lowering his defensive stats might be a good approach so that his strengths and weaknesses are very clear. Another guy who's back in the S tier is Karthus. Again, movement speed is not a meme, guys. On paper, Karthus' clear speed wasn't touched this patch. However, he received 10 movement speed. Back in patch 10.9, Karthus lost 10 movement speed and his jungle win rate tanked significantly. He got it back this patch and it rose significantly. It only makes sense, and Karthus is back to dominating the jungle as he's better at chasing enemies and running away from losing fights. Damage has never been an issue for Karthus. His Q has virtually no cooldown, and with his R, oh boy, don't get me started on that ability. Karthus is a winner this patch, but don't think it's over for him just yet. There's more on him very soon. It feels bad, but we've also moved Echo back down from the S tier after just a week. With Karthus' success in the jungle, Echo feels weaker. When you want an AP jungler, your first thought should be going towards Evelynn, Fiddlesticks, and Karthus, not Echo, unless he's a comfort pick for you. Aside from what people might see as subjective strength, what the former three have is reliability. It's so much easier to get your bang for your buck with these champions. Karthus literally just has to press R and he's useful. Evelynn's stealth creates pressure across the entire map for just being in the game, and Fiddlestick's ultimate doesn't require nearly as much setup or thinking as making a huge montage play with Echo. Echo is still a good champion, but if you want to win games, you need to play someone who can consistently and reliably impact games. Our S+ tier this patch is Fiddlesticks, Volibear, Nunu, and Kha'Zix, while our S tier consists of Lee Sin, Rek'Sai, Shaco, Elise, Warwick, Kayn, Evelynn, Nidalee, Wukong, Zac, Graves, and Karthus. On a side note, Olaf is very close to the S tier now. The buffs to Summoner Ghost helped him out a ton, but oddly enough, it seems like he's one of the very few champions that's using it. Sure, we got other ones like Hecarim too, but players still haven't warmed up to Summoner Ghost yet. Don't sleep on it, folks. Now, let's run through the mid lane. Like we said, things didn't end in the jungle for Karthus. Things are looking good for Karthus mid as well. While his sample size of games is small, we'll tentatively place him in the S tier for now. Overall, his win rate has hit an astounding 52%. Absolutely huge considering this is his comeback patch into the mid lane. Following up on Pyke's changes, our analysts did a pretty good job placing him in the B tier. He's still doing okay in the mid lane, but isn't nearly as dominant as before when his base resistances were so high. It's easier to bully out Pyke now, and in the late game, it's also much easier to blow him up when you do manage to finally catch the slippery demon with some crowd control. Our analysts did a very good job with the mid lane tier list this patch, but they did make one mistake. Zed is not an S tier pick, ladies and gentlemen. He is S+ tier. Zed is pretty busted right now, so if you play him and can somehow get your hands on him, please lock him in. Zed's ban rate has skyrocketed to 31% this patch. The buffs to his W have made him incredibly oppressive to play against. If you struggle against him, I suggest picking a tank and building armor. Prevent him from snowballing, lock him down, and try to take lane priority. Picking traditional mages into Zed is a struggle right now. His W comes out so quickly now, and the cooldown is much lower than it was before. Zed is popping off in solo queue right now. His win rate increased by 2% off of this buff alone. Zed's surge in the mid lane is single-handedly shaping the mid lane meta right now. Picks like Yasuo are weaker simply because they already had losing matchups into Zed. We've heard the community's feedback on Zed and wanted to expand on this point a bit more. While some might disagree with this placement, Zed is single-handedly changing the face of the mid lane. Off of this single patch, he's become the most popular mid laner, the second most banned one, and also holds solid statistics across all ranks. Both low elo and high elo players value him heavily and are finding success with him. The statistics align with previous S+ tier picks like Varus before he was nerfed, and where Darius currently stands. Part of what makes a champion so strong in League is how much players hate playing versus them. Yuumi and Darius are prime examples of this. While Yuumi's win rate rarely ever went over 50% when she was OP, her 60% ban rate demonstrated just how much of a struggle it was to play against her. Zed doesn't rely on mana and can be very difficult to play against because of how much burst damage he brings. Whenever his shadow is off cooldown, even walking up to farm is terrifying for most mid lane champions, and it's even harder to dodge his abilities this patch. The fact that a champion can either force an opponent to ban him or possibly change their champion selection in fear of a Zed counterpick demonstrates that, at least in solo queue, he's an extremely powerful pick. One shift we've made is that we've moved Cassiopeia down to the A tier. Her base armor is rather low, and since AD champions are becoming more and more popular in the mid lane, her win rate has slowly dropped. In the S+ tier this mid-patch update, we have Fizz, Vladimir, and Zed, while the S tier is occupied by Talon, Kassadin, Katarina, Echo, Diana, Sylas, Galio, Annie, Nocturne, Twisted Fate, and Karthus. That's it for the mid lane, so let's head into the bottom lane next. Alright, so we got two changes to run back for the bottom lane. First off, let's talk about Varus. He was gutted, and his stance in the C tier still remains. Across all ranks, including elite brackets, his win rate has toppled. It's safe to say that Varus isn't the same oppressive lane bully he was before, but more importantly, he's not able to scale as effectively into the mid game as before. Without a solid foundation in the early game, Varus doesn't get as fed as he would previously and isn't able to hold that same chokehold he'd previously held against his opponents. I think the bottom lane meta has made some noticeable changes because of this. Champions who were slept on are finally shining because Varus is unable to pressure them out any longer. The next change we'll go over was to Ezreal. As expected, his win rate dropped a bit, but he's still finding a decent amount of success and is still the most contested bot lane pick in the game. This just comes to show that players still value his consistency and safety in spite of the major nerf to his E. Ezreal's ban rates also remain pretty high, sitting above 20%, illustrating players' frustrations of playing against him. If you watched our patch rundown, you know that we moved Ashe into the S tier, and we also placed her in the A tier for high elo. However, both of these were actually off because Ashe is arguably the strongest bot laner in the game right now. All it took was for Varus to get knocked out, and now we've got another bot lane problem with Ashe. Her crowd control and long range are extremely oppressive to play against. Past level 6, you have to constantly remain alert because an arrow to the face means either a jungler is ganking or you're going to get chain CC'd with a follow-up from the enemy support. We've moved her into the S+ tier and the statistics don't lie. In high elo, she holds a 53% win rate, and overall, she holds a 52.5 win rate as well. Aside from our S+ tier, we've moved Kai'Sa down to the S tier, so it now consists of Vayne, Caitlyn, Jinx, Jhin, Draven, Kai'Sa, Ezreal, and Aphelios. Aphelios was moved back up. In spite of his nerfs, he still feels extremely oppressive. His versatile, confusing kit can be extremely troublesome to play against. On top of this, he just deals so much damage you can never count him out. While Aphelios' win rate is rather low, he feels like the strongest marksman in the game if he manages to get an early game lead. In the same way as Ashe, Jhin feels like a much stronger pick now. Varus, Ashe, and Jhin fill a similar niche, marksmen who have initiation tools. When you want one, Ashe and Jhin feel much better now that Varus is weaker, and this again shows how a single champion falling into or out of the meta can shift the balance of an entire role. Next up, let's run through supports to wrap things up. For supports, we only had one balance change this patch, and it was to Alistar. Our analysts moved him into the S tier, but this one is a bit tough to decide whether or not he should stay. He's at worst a high A tier pick, however. In low elo, he's clearly quite strong outside of Iron. Depending on the bracket, his win rate changes from 51 to 52%. In Platinum and higher, that's where things get tricky. Alistar is definitely pretty strong as his win rate has climbed above 51%, but in Grandmaster, he actually holds a 53% win rate at the moment. His playmaking potential definitely merits some success, but at the same time, his win rate is a bit lower in High Diamond and Challenger. Overall, however, the data shows that he's earned a spot in the S tier for now, and our analysts will continue to monitor him as the meta continues to shift. We do want to point out Swain specifically. We're not moving him right now. However, in low elo, his win rates are astounding. In Silver and Bronze, Swain's win rate is sitting around 53%, and he's also expected to receive some changes on patch 10.15. Definitely keep your eyes peeled for our next patch rundown and mid-patch update, as we'll make sure to keep you guys updated on Swain's state. Overall, the rest of the list still feels pretty accurate, and our analysts did a pretty good job of compiling this list. Well, considering there's only one change, I'm sure it wasn't too hard for them on this one. Our S+ tier still consists of Blitz, Senna, Soraka, Lulu, and Bard, while the S tier consists of Thresh, Nautilus, Morgana, Nami, Janna, Leona, and Alistar. There are a couple of distinctions we do want to make within this list, however. Certain champions display different trends in different elos. That's common sense, I know, but I want to take a second to run you guys through who you should be playing based on your elo. This is always subjective, and you should value comfort over anything else, but if you're looking for someone to learn and climb with, I gotcha. Senna and Thresh are the two picks here that you should avoid if you're low elo right now. They're strong, don't get me wrong, but taking advantage of their strength is rather difficult. You need to know a lot and have a solid foundation to work off of. Senna requires a lot of map awareness with your ultimate, and you've also got to have some decent mechanics to play her. She's a marksman after all. Same with Thresh, he's so versatile, but to make use of his unique kit, you need a lot of experience. The other picks in this list find success across all elos, except for Morgana. Morgana remains an S tier pick because of her strength as a counter pick. We heavily suggest you don't pick her blind. Alright, that covers our mid-patch update. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and also subscribe so that you can stay updated with all the different kinds of content that we're releasing. Also, check out ProGuides.com if you're serious about climbing this season, where we have coaches and live classes for you guys. Until next time, best of luck on Summoner's Rift, guys.